You know, if you think about it, a history book is nothing more than long articles about some guys versus some other guys. I mean, really, when was the last time you opened up a history book and saw 1514? Not a bad year. Rained a little, but otherwise a good bit of alright. If you want a story, then you have to have heroes and the other guys. I'm DC Ferguson, author of the Wicked Instruments series, and this is 7 tips for strong antagonists. One of the most overused types of antagonists is the Dark Mirror. It's overused for a damn fine reason, and that's because it works. This type of antagonist is easy to create because they're a reflection of our heroes with choices that are different. They remind us that the same things that corrupted them are what our hero strives to rise above. Luke Skywalker is Darth Vader with the strength to temper his anger and hatred. The Red Skull is Captain America raised in an enemy country with a different set of values. Evil Spock is what would happen if good Spock grew a mustache, and then it's all just downhill from there. In The Singer and the Charlatan, our characters are constantly dogged by a halfling named Weevil who just doesn't seem to die. A twisted, horrible mirror of Priestess Trixie, he keeps showing her throughout their battles that he's just one screw short of being the same person she is. He's a cautionary tale of what she could be. The point is, a good antagonist holds up a mirror to our heroes. They remind them of the danger of straying from the hero's path. If they're doing their job right, they encourage the hero and strengthen their resolve. The hero becomes better because he's triumphing over their darkness and the darkness in themselves. Just please, for the love of all that is sacred and good, do not use the phrase, "We're not so different, you and I." If you're doing your job, you don't need crutches like that. So, let's cut right to an example for this one. This guy kills Alex Murphy at about 12 minutes into the movie. He's then killed by RoboCop approximately 10 minutes before the movie ends. This jackass and his partner were told to kill Alex Murphy, which we only learn retrospectively, which was ordered by the chief of police. None of these characters are all that relevant up until this point in the story when RoboCop gets his grand revenge at a little more than halfway through the film. This movie is glorious, and this movie is largely trash. A good antagonist has a story arc that is every bit as important and relevant as your hero's. Foil him once and you end up on his radar, and then he's hunting you like a dog. The struggle sells the story. If you sell that villain short, then how good is the hero's victory? See, we don't celebrate everyday heroes because one comes along every day. If a giant roe-beast is attacking a planet and we form Voltron, cut that bad boy in half, and King Zarkon's like, well, I'm not messing with them. They have 5 robot cats that turned into a giant robot. Then the story's over after the first episode. So we have to think long-term. I mean this. I really, really mean this. Take your antagonist to dinner. Metaphorically speaking, of course. Take him jogging. Take him to the bathroom. I don't care what you do. But get used to the idea that if you want inside this character's headspace, you need to know what he's like when he's not screwing with our heroes. When he's antagonizing our hero, we're seeing the antagonist's worst, darkest side. But tell me, what does he love? Is he kind to those who help him? When he eats his favorite dinner, does he smile? What's his favorite memory from childhood? Your antagonist isn't an objective. He's not a checkbox on your hero's to-do list. He's a living, breathing person, and your hero will only be a hero because of him. You owe them that much respect. Put your antagonist on a pedestal, love him despite his faults. Then you can ruin him because he deserves it. If you want to see an example of this done perfectly, the Kingpin in the Netflix Daredevil series was absolutely magnificent. Thanks to a shockingly good portrayal from Vincent D'Onofrio and writing like you rarely see. This normally B-list villain in the Marvel Universe dares to almost have more depth than the protagonist. He's complex, a lover of art, a child of a broken home, a man that believes his ends justify his means. He lost a piece of his humanity somewhere along the line, and his vision for complete control over Hell's Kitchen, remade to its former beauty in his image, is the best path forward. He falls in love with passion, and he's nervous, he's humble, he's a gentleman. You get to see so many sides of this man that you almost hate that there's something about him to like when he's so evil. If only we could all create antagonists with this kind of depth. Now, that's a do. Here's a don't. In the DC universe, the Joker is a sacred cow. In the movie universe, one wouldn't dare argue that Heath Ledger was one of the single best versions of the Joker ever put to film, myself included. But the Joker is a legacy character from a bygone era. He's always been evil for evil's sake. He comes from a period where comic books were like a boy's version of fairy tales. While there is absolutely nothing wrong with that, it is not the antagonist type you should ever want to duplicate. Let's peek under the hood for just a second. One of Joker's soliloquies in The Dark Knight is with Harvey Dent, where he describes himself as an agent of chaos and states that he doesn't really look like someone who plans things. However, to swallow that pill, you'd have to ignore the logistics of the heist at the beginning of the movie, the idea that he would get caught on purpose to wind up in a jail cell to issue an ultimatum to Batman and then sneak back out of jail while everyone's away with a person that also got placed in the same jail with him, so he could spring another ultimatum on Batman later. That sounds like a lot of planning. We excuse these kinds of things, though, because Joker gets a pass. He's crazy. He can do anything he wants. Your antagonist is not going to have a 75-year legacy to ignore plot holes like this, which is why it is so important that you understand your antagonist's motivation and convey that to everyone listening. Storylines for every hit film, TV series, or book stick to a very familiar formula. Sometimes you don't even realize you're watching this formula in action. We have the rise of action at the start, our intro, which sets the stage. Some catalyst comes along that calls our heroes to action. Whether they took the red pill, watched their parent die, or watched their parent die. Something will happen that names our antagonist and bonds them with the hero. Now we have to rise in action here, riding up the mountain, until right here, the drop. The drop is so important here. Remember, you can't have Return of the Jedi without Empire Strikes Back, so our heroes need to lose, and they need to lose so big they have to question whether their antagonist is too strong for them. Only then have you earned yourself the sacred montage. We need this montage. It's the return to rising action that will give us that sweet, sweet climax. Now, in The Singer and the Charlatan, Liana Moonbody puts on the performance of a lifetime, singing her heart out in the Saul Amphitheater. But when congratulations are due backstage, Liana's nowhere to be found. She's been abducted and may very well die unless the team can come together and end the antagonist threat once and for all. Rise is very, very key here because you can't get it without the fall. It's how we prove our antagonist's mettle, and we make our victory overcoming all odds. Now, I mentioned earlier, you see this formula and might not even realize it. So let's look at Armageddon. Rising action intro, the world's going to blow up. There's our hero's call to action. Then we have to train. Then we have to go up in space, stop the asteroid from coming and destroying us all. And then there's a problem that causes our heroes to fail. They have to rise back up and get together for one last push to save the world. So who's our antagonist? If you guessed this guy, you're absolutely right. This inanimate object with no thought or feeling is our antagonist. And if you break down disaster movies, every last one of them follows this format. If you look to the annals of those history books I was talking about earlier, you find something funny. Bad guys in a super powerful seat, and I'm talking like the real tyrants here, history is full of stories of multiple attempts on their lives before anyone succeeded. This pope was poisoned a bunch of times before his death. Napoleon kept getting exiled and coming back for war. This one was buried in a wall. Let's see, shot, poisoned, beaten, and then most likely drowned. You get the picture. The point is, these people got to where they were to commit their crimes against humanity through their skill set. Your antagonist should have a skill set that matches their position. A warrior clan is not going to tolerate a mouthy, intelligent fop with strings for arms. That guy just gets gold poured on his head. A room full of scheming, book-learned aristocratic wizards are not going to submit to the whims of a shirtless savage. Instead, your antagonist is likely the strongest amongst their peers. Those beneath him will either envy him, love him, or loathe him. But at the end of the day, he's their boss. He is the pinnacle. To challenge him is something only our heroes can do. Sure, someone among his peers may hate him enough to kill him, and another may love him enough to snitch that guy out. The point is that he's the top of the mountain. Only heroes can climb that mountain. You want to build around him accordingly. Look at Joffrey on Game of Thrones. His rule is sadistic, spiteful, and mean. He bears no combat prowess, shuns good advice, acts on women cruelty. By the time he died, half the characters on the show could get Vegas odds on which one pulled the trigger. His rule lasted a matter of months. Why? Poor skill set. Your antagonist can be super smart, super strong, or super charismatic. Just remember, whatever he is, he dominates his peers and keeps opposition at bay because no one but our heroes can stand up to him. Now, while it might seem difficult to point out great examples, I take that back. It's really easy. Every last tip we've just gone over, it applies to your henchmen too, but only in smaller doses. Our antagonist is clever enough to keep his hold on the realm, and the best leaders delegate. Because creating a henchman, sidekick, protector, whatever you want to call them, is optional, I'm only going to touch on this. But your short arcs of rising and falling action play well with mini-bosses. It gives little victories or little losses to our heroes, and every one of those cause growth and change, making our protagonists build themselves up bigger and better with each encounter. So don't discount the value of these sub-antagonists, as the most well-built ones can sometimes outperform our primary antagonist in the realm of change. Sometimes we spend so much time at the mercy of these sub-antagonists that they become either our greatest ally, and sometimes we have to settle for beating Darth Vader, because we don't get to fight the Emperor. And yes, make no mistake about it, Anakin here was a henchman, not the leader. Remember the title? True antagonists can be so utterly behind the scenes that they're untouchable. Some of them have so many layers of protection around them that if you remove them, they're defenseless. You could even make the argument that the entire Star Wars prequels was nothing but a henchman's backstory, and that is a strong statement of just how powerful a good antagonist can be. I hope I've given you an understanding of how to craft strong antagonists. Remember, the most important part of building a world is to have it fully fleshed out, and your antagonist should be no different. Don't forget to hit that like button, and subscribe for new world building basics videos. For now, have fun and get crafting.